Hello, love. I'm Heather Seipel, intuitive psyche specialist, energy body specialist, and sacred union coach. And I wanted to do this video today on the different skill sets that is learned in the levels of energy healing. Now, there are no particular levels of energy healing, but what I realize is that when looking from a particular angle, I kind of broke it down via the skill sets learned, because I realized that the more skills a person has acquired during their energy journey, the more level of ascension that they possess, and the conversations become very, very different. And another reason is that when I find people looking for energy training or trying to discuss matters of resolving issues and healing, there's sometimes a disconnect. And I think when people have a little bit more of a framework for the skill sets learned, then they can progress a little bit more clearly, and sometimes even procure the types of energy work that they didn't even realize maybe they were missing, or just offer a little bit more broad base of an understanding. So in saying that, of course, there's no levels of energy work per se in general. It's still helpful to frame it that way. But if you're the type of person who doesn't really see the value in this type of framework, then it obviously just disregard and you view it from many other angles if you so choose. That's absolutely wonderful. But for those that this may actually help and help to progress forward your own journey, then I'm happy to explain this little breakdown that I've come to the awareness of. So level 1 energy work. This is the first level that you come into when you start realizing that energy is everything, and crystals actually can help your health and your clarity and manifesting, and and then there's lots and lots of different things to understand and learn. Usually when people come into level 1, it's sort of like they're just engulfing data, they're just learning so much in a short period of time. And so the skill set, obviously, that's going to be learned right up from the beginning is a lot of education, a lot of mind data to reshape and reframe the way that they perceive life. So in this, they can experience things like readings. So the data that's procured via understanding what someone else is intuitively getting, understanding their own codings, astrology, human design, anything that you're particularly coded for that you would understand yourself better, right? This can also include sessions where the client is simply receiving, or they're being guided through a process, but they don't necessarily have to participate, right? So like hypnosis would be an example. Like they're kind of going through it, but they're not conscious mind having to participate and do something. That would be level 1. So it's a somewhat passive experience other than a lot of mind learning, but you can become a practitioner at level 1, right? So you can learn how to do these processes and these practices. So you are participating, but it's still going external from yourself, right? So astrology is about the stars, that's external to ourselves. Understanding your own coding, that's still data. So that's hanging out in the mind. A guided meditation, you're not actually really so much doing it, but it's still somewhat external. Now that can be level 2 as well. So we'll get into that in a second. But anything that the client doesn't have to necessarily participate on, or they're receiving, or you can be a practitioner at that level where you're conveying either data like a reading, like a card reading, or you're guiding someone through where they're not really too actively participating, right? Their skill set isn't being developed very strongly. Now, mastery is different. So when you attain mastery at a particular level is when you attain the highest level of ascension that level will provide for you. After that, you're kind of staying at a plateau, right? Your ascension doesn't grow. You don't have a drastically different understanding, though you may be procuring more and more and more data along the way, and it can inform your decision and you can know more. That's still at that particular level, right? So when you go up a level and you begin to attain mastery at that level, there's an entirely different type of ascension that occurs. Like your framework for all of life begins to switch and change. So level 2 energy work is where the client absolutely must participate, or otherwise the session just simply does not happen. So think of like an inner child session. So if the client isn't participating, the practitioner does not have any progression that occurs. There's definitely not going to be a breakthrough if your client is sitting there silent, you know? So what ends up happening at level 2 is that because the energy work is framed the way that it is and the client must participate, the client can begin to figure out, at least in small ways, how to recreate a session like that for themselves. They can go home and do an inner child session on their own. They may need like regular interaction for the practitioner to kind of guide them and have them have more breakthroughs, but they can go in and talk to their inner child again, right? They can kind of start that reframing and experiencing it again for themselves. So it begin like they innately begin to have a experiential knowledge by participating, right? So they begin to have that particular skill set that level 2 offers for people. Now, level 2 is different from level 1 in the fact that that's where we begin the process of going inward. So level 1 is generally going to be outward stuff or receiving data from a practitioner, whereas level 2, we're not interacting with angels or Akashic record or plant medicine. Well, you could do a plant medicine session at any level, actually. It depends. So with plant medicine, it depends on the skill set level of the person that's actually taking the medicine as to what's going to be experienced, right? So if they're listening to the medicine, that's level 1. That's an external understanding, and they're being taught by an external, guide, if you will. Now, if they're being guided by, say, a shaman, then that's still kind of a level 1, level 2 kind of experience, right? And then you'll see how it progresses further, but basically it's just dependent upon how you're using the medicine. It's just simply a tool. So with level 2, the experience is sort of like, I call it a track. So it's like you start here and you're going to end up here. Like, so with an inner child session, let's say, for example, the practitioner says, okay, we're going to do an inner child session, drops the person into this to meet their inner child. So the whole time they're working with the inner child, right? Now they are inward. So this is where you begin to develop the skill set that we call working directly with the energy. And I'll add to this, working directly with the energy inside of you, not working directly with energy, like say, for example, your third eye is coming online. Okay, well, you need that skill set in order to be able to do level 2 work. You have to see your inner child, or your shadow, or whatever a shaman is guiding you through, right? As you're participating, you kind of have to close your eyes and imagine, see some energy. So you begin that process to work directly with the energy. Level 1, you're connecting with spirit guides, angels, anything outside of yourself, and you do need that third eye to be online a bit, although you don't have to unless you get to practitioner level usually. But it's what directionality that you're working with, right? So your external experience, level 1, going inward, we start at level 2. So you don't achieve mastery, even as a practitioner. You don't achieve mastery with working directly with the energy inside of you at level 2. That is sort of like stage 1, even when you attain mastery. So you keep working inside of yourself. You keep working inside of yourself. And what I call mastery is when you've been avidly, regularly, frequently, continually working with this energy for about a year, then that way you'll achieve mastery. And the way that I kind of explain it otherwise is that when you basically feel so sure that you have seen so many different things showing up in session that you know how to handle it, and you're just like so steady. You're like, oh, whatever happens in this session, I got this, I can handle it. You have mastery at that level, because that's why your ascension will kind of be at its top at that level, because every time you see something different occur in these different sessions, whether you're doing them for yourself or whether you're a practitioner for someone else, you begin to see what begins to occur inside of these sessions, and it develops your knowledge base, and it really adds like a holistic perspective, and then you can have mastery at that level. Okay, so that's level 2. And level 3 would be, okay, so I say that there's sort of like a veil, like this unspoken of veil of sorts between level 2 and level 3 energy work. And the big differences would be that in level 2, you're on this track, you're going to do this particular type of session. There's one energy tool that you're using. Now, what happens in energy space while you're working that particular tool can be very various. It's very unique to the session, of course. But when you get to level 3, you're not on that track anymore. It kind of opens up wide. You don't just learn, your training's not singularly based. You're not learning how to do an inner child session or a shadow work session or a shamanic journeying session, right? You just develop so many skills because you have so many tools that you learn. Level 3 training involves learning one tool, then the next tool, then the next tool, then the next tool, then the next tool. It's like really, really, really stacked with a whole bunch of energy tools. So you suddenly go from a practitioner that has a few, maybe 4, 5, 6 energy tools that you can use and work with to having like 12 or 20. And then you can kind of do a lot more really in energy space. You can do a lot more with your clients. And so the sessions can be framed very, very differently rather than being on a track saying, okay, well, let's go and speak to the inner child about this. You can instead say, I have a problem with my hip. My hip is really trying to tell me something, but I don't understand. You drop right into the hip and work directly with the energy and shift what needs to be shifted, learn what needs to be shifted, and pull from any one of the tools that you've learned. You can use this with your client, you can do this for yourself, and any issue that arises, you can go in and check the energy on it. You don't have to have a clear framework or a clear idea of what the hell even is going to happen. It's just wide open. And so because of that, once you get to level 3 energy work, sometimes it really feels like you've traveled everywhere in your system. You've begun to access all of the locations of your energy body. It feels like anything that comes up in your life, you can totally handle and master. And that's wonderful. That's extraordinary. I really love that feeling. It was really great. And I did reach a glass ceiling. So we'll talk about that in a second too. But for now, level 3 energy work is only inward. There's not going to be, you're generally I mean, on rare occasion, because if it's a tool that you have, you can pull on it. You're generally not going to be going outside of yourself, asking your angels, asking your guidance. I mean, you can, like ask your higher self or whatever if you need, but you're not generally going to be going outside of your own energy body. You're going to be pulling that energetic into your energy body and working it with in there if that's what's needed. But it's not necessarily always what's needed, because you really begin to get a clearer understanding that our system is quite like a kaleidoscope in some ways, where the light comes through us and it shines out, and all of the distorted parts of our system have the light shining through. So we begin to operate that way, and we can really have a lot more control over what happens in our external life because of shifting something inside of ourselves, so we really begin to have experiential understanding of be the change you want to see in the world. So if you want to see a particular change, you can go inside of your system and adjust accordingly inside of yourself, which is really, really an amazing skill to have. So at this level, clearly, you would understand that this is where you attain mastery level of working directly with the energy, because anything that comes forward, you're going to really be able to handle it. And the other skill set that I love that comes from level 3 energy work is because you've learned so many tools and you've gone in your system so many times, you've gone to so many locations, you've worked energy in so many ways, you're pulling in multiple tools in one single session, that you actually begin to understand energy so well that you're able to craft your own energy tools. So you have an energy tool that's not really going to work for this. This one's not going to work for this. I need something different. I've never learned something like this before. Okay, what I need is something that looks like this, that's going to do this. You create it right there, and then it works. And that is where you really can feel like you can handle a lot in this world. You can just really create what you need. You can create the shifts that you need. Another really beautiful skill set that comes through level 3 energy work. You can actually start doing this definitely in any level, but it really becomes a lot more easy to do in level 3, is being with your emotions and being able to breathe them out rather than having to live them out and express them or keep them bottled up. You can kind of let them flow through you. Breath helps a lot when you're doing that. Sometimes movement helps too, but you can literally get those emotions kind of moving a lot more so as to not have a bottled up repression experience there. I highly recommend level 3 energy work because it's so lovely. You really open up as a person, and your ascension level really rises a lot. This is why it's a little challenging sometimes when people reach level 3 energy work. You see them not really having in-depth conversations so much with level 1 energy work individuals, not because of a judgment, just because they don't hang out in those thought processes anymore. It's a whole different level of ascension. And so it's I'll give you an example, so if somebody's having a particular issue and they're saying, well, I've asked the angels about this, should I get a reading so I can figure out how to resolve this issue? And at a level 3, you're looking at them and you're well, clearly they are having resistance inside of them. They aren't able to fully be with the energies of what they want. And so clearly their system has a resistance that's natural and healthy that they're putting up, but they're not seeing that. And so it's sort of hard to, they haven't procured that level of training yet. What really do you say? So you find a lot of level 3 people kind of hanging back and not really stepping forward and offering too much in those kinds of conversations. Now, I do want to add this piece. I can't believe I didn't disclaim this right up at the beginning. There is no judgment at all whatsoever as to what level energy work someone is at or someone wants to do. It is actually not the conscious mind's job to even motivate someone in that direction. The soul chooses when and how that person is going to develop and progress. If you see somebody continually going to things that aren't working and you can see clear as day that this would actually be more helpful than what they're doing, just notice that their soul is having them do that for a particular reason. And I know my soul does it because of timing, which is highly irritating to me because I know it. I'm like actually clear on what's happening, and I'm like really like I have a delay experience happening because my soul is like, it's not time yet, and I'm like, yes it is. You know. So but if you see some that happening to someone else and they're trying to resolve an issue and they're just not going in the, like, you know, what you perceive and can see clear as day would be the places that would unlock that for them. It's not our place to go and insert, right? So being the best that you can in those given moments, but it's not to judge what someone's soul has chosen for them. There's no delineation or specific determination as to what level of energy work will render someone a result. So why the hell, if that's the case, would anybody procure higher levels of training? Well, I know for me, it's because my soul really, really desires forward movement, ascension, understanding it. I love energy work. It's just fascinating to me, and it's a heart's desire. And I don't expect anyone else to have that experience. It's just how it is for me. And the thing about it is, I know clear as day that anyone at any level of energy work, and people who don't even know energy work at all, can have results via their energy body just by being so clear and so determined that they're, you know, it's just an absolute match. They're right on their soul's timing for that, and it happens. You don't have to know energy work to have an epiphany, to have a ping, and to manifest via your own energy body and your soul's choosing. That is naturally planted in every human. So we do energy work so our conscious mind can be clear, and we can have sometimes a little bit more productive or sharpened experiences. We can make it how we want it a little bit better. For me, I like to finesse a lot. And I like to have quicker progress with certain things. And I like to participate in my own upgrades and my own wellness, you know. But, you know, again, no judgment, you know. It's not like we're going to be like, oh, that's a level 1 person. You know, that's just not nice, you know. It's just not cool, man. So that's not what we're doing here. This is just to understand, and also to give people like sort of a language of sorts to use, right? If we're breaking it down by a skill set, I think it can be very, very helpful, because I've seen a lot of people say, for example, purchase a course and they're like, okay, I really want to learn this and this. And, you know, because of the marketing and we're all human and whatnot, people kind of don't have a clear understanding, because energy work is kind of well mystified a lot of the times, right? And so I've seen a lot of people be disappointed thinking that a particular container was going to be a bit more than what they expected. I've seen people join containers thinking that they were taking a course that was like more advanced, more forward, they were moving forward, but it was actually things that they had already learned, or was like tools that were like way behind them, and is just not actually helpful at their level. So if you break it down by the skill sets that you learn, then you might have a better conversation with, say, the person who is putting out the course. And then you can say, okay, well, what skill sets are we actually going to be using here? What is needed for this? And, you know, what type of navigation are we looking for here? Because that's usually, especially when it comes to energy healers, if you're like getting any training online, it's quite a prevailing thought these days to hit the pain points and then talk about like the results that they could have. Well, when it comes to energy work, you don't know what the person already knows and what they want to know, what their objectives are, et cetera, et cetera. And I think with energy work, it's a little different, you know, when it comes to like sales pages and whatnot, because once people have attained mastery at level 2, they generally have an interest in like the actual process and the skill sets they're going to be needing, you know, like they're a little clearer on what they're wanting. Though it is quite a fad these days I've seen it happen to where a lot of people go hyper mystified and they like make it extremely vague and fuzzy. And so, I mean, if you are like drawn to that and you're like, ooh, it's behind the veil, that's awesome. That's great. Like there's no problems with that. But also too, if you're like, get behind the veil and you're like, wait, this isn't what I thought. I mean, just know if somebody is like marketing in this fuzzy energy kind of way, that there's going to be some fuzzy energy on the other side, you know? So it's kind of logical. But yeah, I mean, some people like those like mystery containers where it's like you buy this little bag and you're like, what's inside? I don't particularly like that. That's not my jam, you know? I like to know what I'm buying beforehand. And I think too, a lot of people may not have realized that the skill sets that you're procuring really can relate to your levels of ascension and your levels of capability and capacity in your own life, but also in your energy work. And they may not have really ever thought to ask, well, what skill sets am I going to be learning in this container? You know, and so it can offer a particular language that will come forward between, you know, the teacher and the student. I think that would be really great and really helpful. But okay, so level 4 energy work. So just as much as level 2 and level 3 sort of had a veil between it, also is the case for level 3 to level 4. There's a whole nother veil there. And it's fascinating because, I mean, I know when I, you know, was in level 3 energy work, I was like, I can navigate anywhere in my energy body. Like what, you know, I don't feel like I would ever need more training, you know? So it can definitely feel that way. But I reached a plateau at level 3 energy work. I hit a glass ceiling and I put a little ping out to spirit, my higher self. I might have been a little adamant about it because, you know, all of my tools, my mad skills weren't really doing much anymore. They weren't shifting things. And that's how you know you've reached a glass ceiling, where it's sort of like, I'm making some lateral moves here, you know, like this isn't really progressing anymore. And so I put a little smoke signal out to the universe, and I was like, okay, like I'm super grateful for this level of energy work because I love doing it, and B, it really helps me understand things. I can navigate my system. I can up-level my system. There's tons of reasons. Super grateful. And I'm gonna need something that works faster and consistently, because that was the thing for me in level 3. I never had consistent results. So then one day, I thought I was gonna find this next level of energy work by like scrolling through and finally seeing it and being like, yes, this is what I've been looking for, you know. But instead I was sitting outside one day and download happened. And so I started working with that particular download of the energy tool first. And I mean, it was fucking amazing. I was just mind blown, and I did it like a fury. I was doing this energy tool like 20 hours a week, sometimes more, for like weeks. For like a year. I mean, it was so helpful. And I had more progress in that 1 year than I had had in all of the years of energy work that I had been doing before. And I mean, so much clarity, so much progression. And what I realized, well, okay, hang on. So after I started working with the energy tool and like mastered it, got it like really flowing and working. Well, not like complete mastery, but you know, like a week or two in, and really got it working and understood what was happening. Then I got angry, actually. I got super pissed because I was like, what the hell? I sent this memo out to you 2 years ago. I could have been doing this for 2 years now, you know? I was pretty angry. So my higher self and I kind of went round and round a little bit, but we're cool now, you know? So no, we're good. But it was phenomenal, and it's been absolutely phenomenal. It's been like 4.5 years since I've been using this energy tool. And what I realized that it was, because I didn't realize at first, this is why you need mastery with working with an energy tool, especially when it's not learned in a container where the teacher is explaining it to you point by point. I'm like learning this on the fly, you know? And so I realized that it was defrosting frozen energy in the energy body. And I was like, shut the front door. Who would have ever even thought there's like a multi-dimensional hidden space in our system that's just fucking frozen? Well, it is. There's a lot. It's very, very frozen. And a lot of our system actually is very, very frozen. And what that frozen energy is, oddly enough, is trauma. And it literally reshaped my entire way of understanding trauma. I had been working with trauma for years upon years upon years, like personally, and then teaching and all sorts of tools and yada yada, right? Oh no, I knew nothing about trauma whenever I realized, holy shit, it's frozen. Like our energy body, because we, you know, I mean, when you're in psychology level, you're thinking about the mind and the body and, you know, whatever. But when we do energy work, we're dealing with the energy body, which is the blueprint that the body is built off of. Then from the blueprint and the body comes the mind. So the mind is built off of that. Then from the blueprint through the body, through the mind is the emotions, and that's like its expression. But also the other way, the emotions sort of like give us life. If we didn't have emotions, we'd be robotic. So they're very important. But when your energy body is frozen, that it really eclipses your ability to access those parts of your own system, body, mind, and emotions, wouldn't you know? So, oh my goodness, what I have learned has been utterly freaking fascinating. So when I defrost, I just started defrosting like nobody's business. I realized that the frozen energy is our own energy. So think of a glass, a tall glass, and you're like, I'm really thirsty, I want some cold water. So you pour a bunch of ice, you fill the ice up to the top, and then you pour the water in it and you start drinking the water, and then suddenly there's like no water. You're like, wait a minute, I just filled this glass all the way up to the top, i.e. I just woke up in the morning and my glass was completely full. And then you go through the day and all of a sudden halfway through the day you're fucking drained and you're like, I have no more energy left. Well, that's not actually true. Right? My cup is empty. Well, that's not actually true. Half of it is just frozen and you can't use it, right? Hence the reason we're draining so quickly. We're getting so exhausted. We're at the end of our rope. We can't deal with that situation right now. You know, it's like, that's enough. And it's because our own energy has gotten frozen. Well, then when I started exploring more of the trauma response, right? You know how they have that, they call it something, a looping trauma response or something like that. It's like, well, no wonder it loops. It's frozen. It's just, of course, this is how it's going to go every single time. You know, it's like on repeat. I was like, oh my God, that's true. Then all of this emotional release and emotional expression, I just kind of had my mind blown because, and this is just from the first part, right? A whole nother part downloaded to me. I'll tell you about that in a sec. But all of this is happening as I'm like defrosting my energy body. All of a sudden my emotions, which were a holy hot nightmare at that moment, which I was really shocked about because I'm like, I'm a freaking level 3 mastery energy healer at this point. Like, why did my system get so discombobulated? But it was like a lot of these trauma experiences just froze up my energy body. I was freaking exhausted and my emotions were so heavy and I was just like, oh my God, right? So I'm doing this energy work, not ever realizing I'm doing energy work on frozen energy. I could make lateral moves, but I was never gonna have that progression that actually did the result that I wanted, which then was really infuriating. I got a whole nother round of upset with my higher self, but that's another story. Me and my higher self go round and round sometimes, but we're really, really, really close. Anyways, so when I started defrosting, I realized that actually you don't have to process the trauma. You don't have to cry your guts out and go through it. You don't have to emotionally express to anybody else. You don't have to be bombarded by your own system. Because what it's doing, because in level 3 energy work, we learn to be present with these emotions. It's so alive and so real and so huge. And these emotions are gigantic. And, you know, like you learn to be with them. And that's great. That's a skill set we're going to need for module 2's energy work. But what it was doing, and then I got pissed off again when I realized, wait a minute, the adrenal glands start flushing when you get triggered. Your heart rate goes up. All of these emotions are causing cortisol to flush through your whole system. My body is still recovering from when I went through level 3 energy work. I had so much damage that my own hormones and chemicals in my own body were doing as I went through this deep emotional understanding and knowledge of myself. It was rough. I had a lot of trauma and those emotions were pent up. Well, at level 4, you start defrosting and it's not actually an emotional experience, but though sometimes you can have what I call break the seal on an emotion bubble, right? When, say, there's a bubble of air frozen in the ice, it's like that's where the emotion is held. And then you defrost, and like you break the seal and that emotion gets out. It comes out like full on level 3 energy work, emotional expression. I mean, it's like a storm raging of emotions, but then it clears and it's like the sun comes out and you can never feel that emotion ever again. I've tried avidly. After like an emotion bubble cleared, I went in, I was like, no, this situation that caused that much pain and suffering, I have to have a feeling somewhere in me. I tried the hardest to tap back into that emotion. It was gone. Like it was like not coming back, gone, you know? And it caused so much lift up and buoyancy in my system. And I mean, I'm an air sign, so I need to have lift up and buoyancy. You know, I don't like feeling all heavy and weighed down. I get a little grumpy whenever it's a water season. Like the 3rd, 4th week into like a water sign, I'm like, I feel wet, you know? It's like I need buoyancy, and all of that trauma wasn't wet per se, it was heavy. Ice is very, very heavy. And I didn't have that buoyancy for a good long while. And so I was just working with a fury in my system. Like I am defrosting like crazy. Well, the process is not exactly simple. I mean, it is simple, I guess you would say, but it's not what you would, I guess, generally imagine, as is the case for all level 4 energy work. It's strange. It's different, definitely different, different kind of work in general. But there's so much that occurs, and that, you know, awareness, illumination happens. You start putting 2 and 2 together. But my favorite result of the defrosting experience is that I call it uneclipsing. It's when things that you have been wanting, things that you've been hunting for, you're like, I know that there has to be this out there somewhere, and you've searched high, low, you've done all the manifesting tools on it, nothing is happening. You're not actually getting that. Then like you start defrosting and you're not even thinking about that thing that your heart really wants, your heart's desire. And all of a sudden it lands right there into your space and you're like, I have been looking for this everywhere. That happened with a health issue. I'm going to do a separate video about my health issue because the story is long, but it is fascinating. I looked for 32 years for a resolution that I knew, I just felt it in my bones that there was a resolution to this. I spent tens of thousands of dollars on doctors, practitioners over 30 something years. I mean, holy crap. And I wasn't even working on that in energy space. I just kept defrosting. I kept defrosting. And I mean, it fell in sequence. Like this landed, this landed, this landed. It was like a freaking golden rug that was like laid out in front of me. I never did one energy session on this. And it was my heart's desire. It just started landing into my life because I defrosted all that trauma shit. And like my system could actually communicate in those spaces with the universe, and the universe was like, oh, I see your heart's desire for this. Yeah, here it is. Oh, here's another piece. Here's the next piece. What? So when I had told Spirit, I'm going to need something with consistent results, I got my wish. I did get my wish, and it works faster, really, really fast. So there's the defrosting, right? And I've been doing this for 4.5 years. Occasionally I'll find something that needs a lot of defrosting, which I love. I'll tell you why in a sec. But most of my energy body around a lot of things have been mostly defrosted, which is fucking amazing. But the reason why I love finding another area that's like just fucking frozen is because I know how much better I'm going to feel right afterwards, and how many really cool things are going to start happening, and how many epiphanies I'm going to have, and like new awarenesses are going to come through, new possibilities and new processes that have been happening. I have just absolutely been loving life since I have been doing this. It's been amazing. But then I did that for about a year, and the second piece of this whole puzzle landed. And so I had gotten mastery on, you know, the defrosting part, and I had started teaching it. But then the module 2, I call it, because it's module 2 of my container. The module 2 tool landed, and I kind of stepped back from teaching it and speaking about it online. I think I might have, yeah. There probably hasn't been much out of me since then, because I started working avidly with the second tool, and I again had to figure it out. I was using level 3 energy work skills and processes to work with this tool, and for about 3 months I couldn't get it. Not a stitch of a result happened, nothing. It didn't work. And then I figured out how to work with the level 4 energy tool. So this was to break the junk programs that are in our system. So once we defrost the energy body, there are these things hanging out in our system that really interfaces with the operating system, right? So if you imagine your operating system as like the software that runs you, then you understand that like most of the programs are absolutely wonderful. It's what creates your personality. It's what allows your digestion system to work properly. There's tons and tons of programs going on inside of you. It's the way you do rather than the way somebody else does, right? It's your uniqueness. There's like infinite. There's just tons of different programs in our systems. But on some of those programs, there's what I call junk program, or, you know, it's like a virus and a software. So the way this junk program does is it orients to the original program. Now, the original program that's very you is unique. So it's not like somebody else's program, it's your program. So this junk program kind of orients to that and interfaces it with it in a unique way. So every time you go to work a junk program, you have to work with it in a particular fashion, because it's not form-fitting, it's just seamless in a way. Anyways, it's strange, but I teach exhaustively about it. But anyways, it's super fascinating because this junk program interfaces so seamlessly with your natural program that you can talk about this as the day is long and never see where it's going sideways, because it's your natural way, but it's also not working right. So it's causing this distortion in your life, and it's causing you to not like have the experience that you're wanting, which is what makes it crap. You know, it's a junk program. And so it's also stealing our energy. Junk programs take a ton more of your daily energy than your natural programs. I call them your essence programs. It's like your uniqueness, your you doesn't take all that much of your own energy to run and operate, but these junk programs really freaking drain us. So, and they're running 24/7. They're taking all of the energy that they need to run and function to create your life experience just the way that it is and have that on repeat. So the anatomy, I call it, the anatomy of how this works in a system is there's a junk program sitting upon your essence program. Then out of that comes a pattern. So it beams this little basic concept, all lack consciousness is a junk program. So like, if you're thinking like, what the hell is she talking about? Okay, any lack consciousness thought, bing, 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 this is a junk program. So it creates a pattern because it's going to orient you that way. So the way you're going to see life, the way you're going to operate, the decisions you're going to make, those knee-jerk reactions are going to all be out of the lens of this junk program, right? So it creates a pattern. Now from this pattern emanates a wound, a wound, a wound, a wound. Why? Because this pattern, the way you operate and perceive life, ends up with somebody else interacting with you and creating an unpleasant experience, sometimes a graphically unpleasant experience, right? So then you have multiple wounds that come off of one pattern. You have, maybe a couple of patterns, few patterns that come off of one junk program, right? So off of our wounds come our protection mechanisms and our outrageous emotional responses and all of these, things, right? So then I kind of took a step back and I was like, wait a minute, so many practitioners work with clients on this level, right? And even level 3 energy work, it's like, okay, well, let's identify this pattern, but it's never going to get into the junk program. Why? Because even after you've defrosted and defrosted and defrosted, if you didn't defrost enough, you go in for a session to get to that junk program, even though you know how, you frame it exactly right. If it's still frozen, you will not see it in your session at all. So you have to turn that session into a defrosting session if you want any progress. So even after you've been doing this for a while, you still absolutely have to keep defrosting in order to uncover this junk, so there's a lot of work to do at level 4. But what's fascinating is it builds out your access to your energy body that you didn't have access to before, which means you can think, you can process, you can behave, you can understand in these areas of your system. It literally, and I'm not exaggerating at all, it literally grows your competence in different areas of your life. It's like you absolutely masterfully, once you get rid of the junk program, suddenly you're more you. You're more of a person. You're filling yourself out more. It's fascinating how much more steady of a person that I've become in my inner world, how much safety that creates when, you're not I guess your energy body isn't filling out, say, to the edge of your whole body, right? There's gaps in there, and people and traumatizing situations, other energies can get in there and do a thing, and it's really not cool, So when you fill yourself out more, which takes a lot, there's a lot of junk program in our system, So whenever you go in and remove that junk program, you naturally just have access to those parts of you. You wake up the next day and you can tell on some intrinsic level that you're more solid. You have new thought processes, you have new skill sets like that. For example, if you were having trouble doing something and you were hiring a coach and you were going to that coach over and over again and they were explaining it to you and you would do something and then a roadblock would come up. So then you would go to the next session and you would say, okay, well, this roadblock came up. And they would say, oh, okay, well, when that happens, you do this. And you're like, oh, okay. So then you go do that. And then another roadblock comes up and then you have to go to them, right? So in their energy body, they're not frozen right there. They know exactly what to do anytime a roadblock comes up. So the way that I say that this competence gets built in your system, it's like something that you feel is outside of your wheelhouse or your ability to handle, it becomes so obvious and logical to you that you have so much mastery around it. It's literally the equivalent of you suddenly realizing you need butter and like you can handle that situation. Like you're like, okay, well, I grab my keys, I lock the door behind me, I get in my car, I drive to the store. Okay, well, what if a roadblock comes up and like the road is closed? You're like, okay, well, I'm gonna go down this road and down this road, and I'm gonna, you know, get the butter and come home. Like it's, you know, all of the steps, it's solid. Anything that comes up, you're going to deal with it. You're going to situate it. Not to say that you won't get necessarily like frustrated or like, this is taking my time, but you know how. You don't have to ask someone. You're not calling your friend with all of these emotional expressions and saying how overwhelmed you are. It's just, you don't actually have overwhelm there anymore, right? So I'm a highly relational person, right? So my program where I teach this level 4 energy work is called Relationship Mastery. Well, first of all, we need to master the relationship with ourselves first. But I absolutely love, like I'm totally coded for high level energetic romantic relationships. So I could teach that stuff in my sleep, and I absolutely love it. It's the most fascinating stuff. So my brain always goes to relational issues whenever we're talking about a frozen energy body, right? So if you're, you know, coming up on the edges of things and you're triggered about something and you're wanting a shift in a connection, well, that's actually sometimes harder because you can shift something inside of yourself, but then it sometimes always seems like there needs to be something on the other person's end, right? And there's like these spaces where we can not have full competency because we're like, okay, well, now what? You know, what do I do here? Or I keep triggering about this, or I have a block in my heart around this topic or whatever. And those are the places where it doesn't matter who the person is. It could be your friend, it could be your romantic partner, it could be your child or your parent, a boss, whoever comes into that topic, you've got a wall in your heart there because there's a pain, there's a wound, there's something that hurts. But when you don't have that any longer, your ability to navigate an interface is a hell of a lot easier, right? And so, especially for females, which is that my container is only for female level 3 energy practitioners, you know. But for females, there is so much misogyny that has caused us, because misogyny has been for centuries, I mean, actually millennia, you know, on this planet. It's just been like passed down, and there's so many pieces of misogyny that we wouldn't ever even be able to put our finger on, right? It's just these tiny, insidious ways in like literally all over our system, right? So they're hidden all over the place. Well, there are these ways that we don't even know, that our grandmothers never even knew, right? Our great grandmothers never even knew, because that part of our system, that part of our competence has been gone for centuries, and there's no practice of that continuing, right? So how do we develop competence and mastery in an aspect of our system that we don't energetically have access to because it's frozen, and no one we even know actually has competence in that area either, right? So I'm going to be doing a training, a video here called the feminine energy body. Yeah, check that one out because I have so much to say about that topic. But moving right along, yeah, level 4 energy work has been, for me, it has been what I always wanted and I thought I was going to experience in level 1 energy work, right? And I still see level 1 energy work practitioners speaking as though those tools are going to create, you know, highly advanced results. Not that they can't, because again, the results are dependent upon what your energy body is emanating out and the universe can actually hear and meet you with. Sometimes, you know, I mean, you don't have to know energy work even to do that. You just get really freaking determined. Which there's an energy body archetype that I call them, I lovingly refer to them as instant manifestors. And I don't mean like they can hold out their hand and instantly manifest something. I mean, as soon as they get clear I'm talking about crystal clear, all of a sudden that experience is happening. I've seen it happen over and over again, and I observe, and I love the fact that they have that mad skill in their system. I'm like, that's hella cool. I've got different mad skills, but that one is hella cool. I'm not an instant manifester, and so I need process. And not just process, correct tools, correct process, and freaking strategy. I've never seen strategy taught in energy containers before. I mean, in my container, every different module is like a different energy school. So each of the different modules have different trackers. Then the trackers contain different concepts because we need to we're trying to explain to our conscious mind exactly, to have it get on board exactly what we're doing. Well, when it gets to module 1, we're defrosting, so that's pretty simple. But come to module 2, we are doing some hella hard energy work. This is the most challenging energy work I have ever encountered. And the strategy is extensive. So we start building out a map. Okay, what are we working? What pieces need to be handled before we work this piece, right? What goes into this piece? Because it's your own system, right? If there's a piece that's really frozen and you get to this piece and it's like, no, you shall not pass. That happens. So at that point, you need to get data. You just now turn this into a reconnaissance session, right? You're getting data. So as to build out your strategy, only once, usually whenever I find this in my system, there's like one extra piece I have to work before this piece will move. But one time I encountered five parts of my energy body I had to build out before this other piece would move. It's a huge one. It's definitely a misogyny piece too. It's like the nice girl one. Oh yeah. I needed multiple parts of my energy body built out. What does that mean? That means there's 5 areas in my system where I'm not operating with proper competence to have the result that I wanted in that particular session. So I have to go build out these parts of me so I can operate in those ways to have this result. And it's clear, it's mapped out. It's a lot of work, but for those of you who love energy work, I think you would actually really love it too. But when you create strategy, you get that clarity, right? And you know exactly what you have done. That's why I don't refer to manifesting anymore. I refer to it as uneclipsing. I refer to it as landing. So instead of manifesting, I did something and now it's landed in my life, right? This landed for me. So I didn't manifest it, because manifesting is like this fuzzy way of co-creating. It's like I beamed this out. This one is like I have this clarity of exactly what I did and what I want, and here it now then landed because I did the work of defrosting, right? So I don't refer to it as healing anymore. I refer to it as resolving, right? Because healing is like also kind of a fuzzy definition, right? Resolving is like I did this, and this resolved. I resolved this. Now you are co-creating because you're not ever going to supersede your soul's decision on anything. But what happens is that the more of your energy body you build out, the more your higher self can just naturally operate through you. So you're not having to go external and ask any questions. Your higher self is just doing life through you. And I'm telling you, for my system type, I guess I was frozen in a lot of areas, but I can't even begin to tell you how different I feel when I walk out the door in the morning. Whenever I approach life, I feel so much more in my body, so much more full, so much more grounded, so much more clear. And to be competent about this is the energy work I did that that caused this experience. I have resolved this issue in my life. And whenever I say that the woundings collapse, energetically they go away, I'm not joking, right? So we don't work the wound. Now, sometimes in level 3, you could, here's a painful thing, you go work the wound. I don't recommend that. if you're wanting to learn level 4 energy work, leave that for later. Like, leave that wound, leave it there, and you're gonna work it later. It'll be beautifully, smoothly, and not with a whole bunch of cortisol released in your system, resolved, right? So, because you're never gonna like fully work a wound from level 3 because of that junk program's keeping it alive. So what we do is we defrost, we dismantle the junk program, therefore cutting off the fuel source to the wound. And I'm not talking about like some little wounds like, oh, when I was a kid, this happened, you know, no. I'm talking about fucking graphic canyon-sized wounds. Like, I had a wound so bad. Like, I mean, it was complex PTSD to an extreme. It was so bad that for over 20 years of my life, I never even as much as thought about the situation. There was no way I could talk about it. I couldn't think about it because I know what would happen. If I thought one whole second about it, then first of all, I would start hyperventilating, crying. And second, the nightmares would come back. I mean, it was so horrifying graphic trauma that, you know, clearly I was like, I blocked that shit off, and thank goodness my system was super masterful. I dissociated those parts and sealed it with a big old, you know, steel door, and, you know, anyways. So since I've been working that piece, I mean, it was like a freaking mountain, complex PTSD, so many freaking layers. I can actually talk about it now. Now I've worked like 2/3 of the way through it. There's still like some pieces that I'm like, okay, I need to take a little pause. You know, every third that I do, I take like a pause, and I'm like, okay, I'll come back to that in a little bit. Because I need to work other pieces. And I get tired working the same piece over and over again. So I'm like, oh, I'll take a little break and come back to it. But it's so startling. This last third that I worked, so much illumination and awareness came through about this situation. And oh my God. Yeah, that's going to be a whole nother video, a whole nother story for another day. But things that I would have never in a million years seen about this situation came through, and I can speak about it with no emotion at all whatsoever. It doesn't even hurt. I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's just downright startling. I can't even believe it. But the 1/3 that I haven't worked, oh yeah, that's painful still. But it's not nearly as charged, and it's not like the emotions aren't on the surface. It's like it's frozen somewhere like deep in, and I need to like, you know, get in there. But I need to figure out what it is that I'm still upset about, because I don't have all that very many emotions about it anymore. Like, you know, so I'm looking like at this point, I'm like, okay, I need to find something that hurts about it. I need to sit down and like go through the layers, because I hardly feel anything about this shocking horror of a situation that happened when I was a teenager. Like, it was so bad of a situation that in the late 90s, I couldn't tell anyone about it, because this sort of stuff isn't possible. It was that kind of trauma. Like, no one would believe you. I'd have gotten locked up in a mental institution if I would have articulated this. But then lo and behold, the whole Epstein shit blows, and now people actually have a paradigm for this. Well, maybe not in the energetic, you know, understanding, but those of us do have an understanding of the energetics of that shit. But horror, like really fucking intense horror. But I can actually talk about it now to people. I started talking, you know, one of my friends, right as I was like initially working, I hadn't even gotten a whole third of the way through it. I told one of my absolute best friends, and she's like bawling her eyes out, crying. And I was still crying a bit because I really had just started working it. And she was like, I had no idea that happened to you. And I was like, I mean, she's just like, I can't believe this, you know, and I was just like, I'm grateful that I'm actually able to talk about this. I mean, the nightmares were already coming back, so I was like, well, fuck it. I mean, let me tell one of my best friends, because like, you know, I could wake up at any moment with a horrible nightmare anyway. So I was kind of rolling through it, but it was because I hadn't approached it with the level 4 energy work yet. It was a situation in life that tower momented and like blasted this open. So a current life complex PTSD situation blasted open a complex PTSD situation from, 26 years ago. And so I was dealing with 2 complex PTSD situations, and I was so fucking grateful that I knew level 4 energy work, because even though my emotions were like spilling out like a dam breaking loose, my feet were solid under me. Like, I had defrosted so much. I had broken so many junk programs in my system that I felt solid. And I actually was able to say, I'm gonna need a minute. Like, you're gonna have to give me, don't talk to me. I'm doing inner world work. Like, it's fine. I will be fine. Everything is fine. Don't worry even about me. You don't even have to think about me. I'm fine. I will handle it. It's just gonna be miserable for a few months. And it was. I cried probably every day for 2 months. But then got enough defrosted that it didn't hurt. But it was gross coming out like that. I wish I would have defrosted more before a current life situation had the opportunity to, cause some misery. But I was so fucking grateful that I had done so much, foundational stability work in my system that I just felt so solid. And, that whole asking for what you're needing and saying it where your energy is saying it too, like the other person gets it and they're like, oh, she is okay. Like, oh, okay, she said what she needed. I'll honor it, even my sister and I, we're not like super close, but we had like these this super deep conversation, and she was fully present, really, really hearing me. And I was like, good. Yeah, okay, you heard me. Like, it was like my energy was right there saying, like, I need this, I need time, I also need this and this in the process. That was not me. Like, I wasn't the type of person that was able to say what I needed, especially when I was blasted open. I created more competence in my system. I created more skill set and more stability and structure and foundation. I was very, very, very pleased with this level of energy work, because I never attained that, in any other previous level. So, oh my gosh, there is so much more I could say. That's why I started a whole new YouTube channel. And so if you are interested in hearing more about like the epiphanies that I've had at this level of energy work, feel free to subscribe if you would like. But just forewarning before you do, that a lot of my awarenesses kind of turn the prevailing thoughts of a lot of spiritual development and inner development work on its head. I mean, it really almost is like opposite, just like that emotional expression piece where we're taught like, express your emotions, get it all out. And I started realizing how much damage I did to my body by doing that, right? So like, there are some pieces that it does make a lot of sense. It's like, oh, right. But it does kind of go against the prevailing thought. So just keep that in mind before you click subscribe. And also too, if, I just want to recap real quick. None of these levels of like looking at energy work from this particular angle is meant to judge. It's also not meant to delineate what somebody is able to masterfully create in their life and their experience. It is sheerly just for the ability to understand via this particular angle, have, more of a framework and a knowledge base, and also potentially to be able to communicate with others a little bit more clearly, and smoothly and easily. So I really am grateful for your presence here on my new channel. And if you would like to give me a little gift or blessing of generosity, I would really appreciate any likes or, comments, even if it's a heart or something. I will send gratitude energy to your heart for doing so. And I'm really pleased and honored and grateful that I started a new YouTube channel. I feel like I'm coming out of a cave where I've done a hell of a lot of deep work. And so I'm excited to share with you. And if anybody here is a level 3 energy practitioner and you're curious and you're interested in checking out more, you can check out the page for Relationship Mastery, my level 4 training, which will be in the comments. In the comments section, in the description, sorry. Oof, it's been a while since I have posted. Okay. You can check that out, and I will be with you again shortly. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful week. Bye for now.